best-selling author, lecturer, researcher, syndicated columnist, father of Reaganomics, former head of policy, Department of Treasury under Ronald Reagan, Dr. Paul Craig Roberts. Doctor, it's good to have you here with us.
Well, hello, Alex. Good to be with you. People are first going to be put through the ringer of deflation, declining asset values, and then the efforts they make to deal with that is going to will set off the opposite, rising inflation. It could easily reach hyperinflationary level, and no one really knows what to do, and there aren't really any solutions. You have to understand, too, you see, the United States is now a heavily import-dependent country. We weren't during the Depression. We weren't dependent on imports.
We were on the land.
No, but we weren't dependent. We had no trade deficits. We didn't have to import energy and manufactured goods and advanced technology products and our shoes and our clothes. But see, now we're heavily dependent on imports, so we have massive trade deficits and no way to pay for them, particularly if the dollar goes. So I think it's the potential here is far worse than the Depression. I don't see any leadership in Washington. The first thing they did, I'm sure you've emphasized many times, is they ran in and stole $1 trillion from the taxpayers and gave it to the banksters. And so the first thing they did when they see a crisis is to take advantage of it, to steal from us more, to give to the banksters who caused the problem. So you can see that with the kind of leadership we have, they're criminals. Anything that happens, they use it as an opportunity to steal more.
And, sir, as you know, Obama cheerleaded for the banker takeover bill called the bailout. And whereas people had hoped he would, at least it would be a repudiation of Bush, it appears that he is going to accelerate the entire program, including the Middle East, confrontation with Russia, everything.
Well, you know, Alex, what's going to put the quietus on their confrontation with Russia and their wars in Afghanistan and everywhere else is the fact they're not going to have any resources. See, all of that is financed by China and Japan and the Saudis. And why are they going to keep financing a sinking ship? I mean, we're talking about a ship that's going to sink big time.
But they're counting on the military to enforce the banker takeover of the republic and a militarized police.
Yes, I think that the police are out of control. They're basically thugs who like to use violence. And there's no accountability now because the government got away with 9/11. And so any kind of violence is justified in terms of protecting us from terrorists or people who might have been a terrorist. So you've been on that. You know that. But
well, you're not mincing words now. You're saying guaranteed mega depression. 9/11's an inside job, not the evidence points towards it. Man, you're really, Dr. Roberts, coming right out and putting it all on the table.
Well, I've never tried to hide anything. I just try to say what the evidence supports. I never believed 9/11 because I had engineering training at Georgia Tech, and I could tell when a building is being blown up by explosives. Any fool can look at those films and see that the buildings aren't falling down; they're blowing up.
I know. It's so we're in the twilight zone, Doctor. I mean, you're the father of Reaganomics, the big star with Ronald Reagan. I mean, you're so respected, and now here you are writing and talking about all this, and people in government are snickering and sucking their thumbs, while, as you said, wild criminals are running around stealing, and suddenly all these billionaires are hanging themselves, jumping in front of trains. They're clearly being killed. Madoff, he didn't steal 50 to 100 billion by himself. It turns out big banks knew and were involved with him. I mean, you're right. Can you speak about the Madoff syndrome? This is the founder of the NASDAQ.
Yeah, I just don't know enough about it, but it certainly does show the extent of total corruption. I mean, the man didn't need to do that. It wasn't like he was poor. And furthermore, nobody needs $50 billion. There's nothing you can do with $50 billion. It's a huge sum. I mean, it's not large enough to create your own private army to overthrow the United States or China or anything. But it's far larger than anybody could ever spend.
But that's what Wall Street and the banksters have done, is they have stolen the pension funds, moved all this money into other assets, and they are overthrowing us.
That's right. They're overthrowing our financial security. They pretty much accomplished that.
But aren't they burning down their own house in the process?
it's sort of surprising that the people haven't dragged them out in the street and hung them, actually. I mean, 100 years ago, what would have happened to them? I can't say I know, but and we don't know what's going to happen yet. But, we don't need to be so extreme in what we say. We can just ask the question, how are they going to finance a $2 trillion deficit? This is never done before. When I was in Treasury, if we had to finance a $2 trillion deficit, we wouldn't have known what to do. And, of course, the economy then was far stronger, and we didn't have massive trade deficits. We hadn't offshored all the good jobs.
So how do you see this unraveling then? Because I've got several mainstream articles here today. International Herald Tribune, U.S. debt is losing appeal in China, and it sources major Chinese papers saying they may just completely stop buying U.S. debt.
Well, I suspect they will. And as I said, we've already covered that. When people see, our creditors are foreigners, because the American saving rate is zero.
Negative.
It may be negative, but what the point is, we don't have any money to finance our deficit, so we have to rely on foreigners. Now, I did say it's possible that this deficit can be financed by the American flight from stocks and money market funds and bank CDs, because there may be further crises from the credit card debt and all the rest that cause them again to lose confidence. And so people may buy the treasuries just as the only place they think they can put the money other than in their mattresses.
Even though they get no return.
Even though they get no return. They may do that, and that may finance it. Nevertheless, even if that does finance it, the foreigners are going to see, hey, look, there's $2 trillion more in treasury bonds that are out. What has that done to the value of mine? Should I be holding these things? And then if they start lightening up the existing holdings, not only will they not buy anymore, they start selling what they got. Then all that comes into the market. Who takes that up? And the Fed would have to monetize it. They just have to create the money. I can't see how they can get out of that. Whatever they do, it looks to me, is either going to put pressure on the dollar's exchange value, driving it down, or it's going to cause more inflation, driving the value of the dollar down, or it's going to erode the government's credit standing. There's nothing they can do that's not going to do one of those three things, and perhaps all of them that I can think of. Now, maybe some brilliant person will show up and they'll come up with some new scheme. But Alex, the problem is that the debt has so greatly outpaced
the economy,
the growth of real income, that there's just not enough income there to support the debt. You may know the Bank of England is the British version of the Federal Reserve, and one of their former governors announced 2 days ago, this is reported in the London Telegraph, this is the quote, the long-held assumption that U.S. assets, particularly government bonds, are a safe haven, will soon be overturned as investors lose their patience with the American economy and flee from the dollar. So he predicts a massive dollar collapse. Now, if that happens, we're dead meat. There's nothing we can do because that's how we pay our bills. So what would I do if I was in the Treasury? I would first try to reassure the world that the dollar still had a chance to be the reserve currency. I would do that by attacking the budget deficit and the trade deficit. I would attack the budget deficit by instantly stopping these expensive wars that we cannot afford, by slashing the massive defense budget, which is larger than the rest of the world combined and has no practical purpose. We cannot establish American hegemony over the world. I would slash that, and therefore I would get the damn budget deficit down by $500 billion. And then I would impose a new form of taxes on corporations. I would abolish the income tax, and I would tax them according to how much of the value added of their products occurred in the United States. If they make their goods that they sell to us here, they have a very low tax rate. If they make them in China or Indonesia or somewhere else, they have a very high tax rate. And so that would tend to bring the jobs back to America. Then the world might say, okay, these fools are finally going to take the necessary steps. They'll get their house back in order. We'll stick with them. But if instead all we do is run up more debt and continue these wars, which they're going to stop financing sooner or later, we're going to have this dollar collapse, in which case
it's over.
It's over. There's no way out if that happens.